sea should have swallowed the land long ago. People built a life instead of walls. Welcome to Fascinating Discoveries. I am the Old Observer, a man who has wandered across continents, watching the world quietly reveal its contradictions. I've seen kingdoms fall beneath sand, cities rise from ashes, and people adapt to things they were never meant to survive. But nowhere, truly nowhere, have I seen resilience turned into art the way it has been done in the Netherlands. They call it the Low Country, and they're not exaggerating. A quarter of this land lies below the sea. But the Dutch don't fight nature. They negotiate with it. Behind every tulip field, every windmill, every canal that glitters beneath the gray northern sky, there's a story of survival, quiet, steady, and deeply human. This is not a documentary about tourism or postcards. It's a reflection about how a small nation learned to turn its weaknesses into wisdom. Here you'll see people who live behind glass windows without curtains because they believe honesty should be visible. You'll meet women taller than most men who walk through the rain with a kind of effortless strength, neither proud nor humble, just whole. You'll find villages without roads, where boats glide through silence, and bridges rise not for cars, but for swans and fishermen. The Netherlands isn't perfect, no place is, but it's one of those rare corners of the earth where logic and poetry seem to coexist, where discipline doesn't kill freedom, it protects it. So tonight, come with me. We'll drift through canals that mirror the sky, pass through towns split in half by borders and stitched together by trust, and maybe, by the end of this journey, you'll see what I've seen, that sometimes the quietest countries have the loudest lessons to teach. If this voice finds you tonight, leave a trace, a comment, a share, a simple act that says you were here. Because stories like these, they don't just belong to those who travel, they belong to those who still care enough to look. Number 1, a land below the sea, yet above the storm. They say the Netherlands was borrowed from the sea, but when you walk across it, it feels less like land and more like a quiet promise, a promise made between man and nature centuries ago. I will not drown you if you learn how to live with me. Here, the horizon never rises. The sky presses low, heavy with clouds, as if reminding people who's still in charge. Yet beneath that weight, life moves with astonishing calm. Villages rest behind levees and dikes, the ground shaped like a shallow bowl carefully carved by human hands. It's strange. Most nations expand outward. The Dutch built inward, reclaiming what the ocean once claimed. Every canal, every windmill, every green field that looks so peaceful is a victory disguised as scenery. I once stood near Kinderdijk, where 19 ancient windmills still turn with the same slow patience they've held for 700 years. Locals call them the guardians. They don't generate power anymore. Their work is quieter, to remember, to remind the young that every inch of dry soil here was earned, not given. But that's the beauty of this country. Nothing here is loud. Even its triumphs whisper. There's no shouting about human mastery over nature, only a subtle sense of balance, a line drawn carefully between control and surrender. And somehow, this humility has built one of the most advanced nations on Earth. The Dutch didn't conquer the sea. They learned its language, studied the tides, calculated the storms, and designed barriers that can close faster than the blink of a city light. The Meslandkering, a storm surge gate the size of the Eiffel Tower, stands like a sleeping giant on the coast. It wakes only when the sea grows angry, closing its arms to protect millions. When you stand there, hearing the wind whistle through its steel bones, you can't help but feel small and grateful, because you realize this country's strength isn't found in walls or weapons, but in understanding, Perhaps that's why the Dutch live the way they do. Calm, organized, unhurried. When you spend generations holding back the ocean, you learn not to panic. You learn that the real battles are fought not with noise, but with endurance. And maybe that's the first quiet lesson the Netherlands offers the world. Power isn't about domination, it's about coexistence. The windmills keep turning, the canals keep flowing, the people keep trusting that tomorrow the sea will still sleep, because they've done their part to keep it that way. I looked at that landscape and thought, maybe this is what faith looks like. Not in gods, not in governments, but in the quiet agreement between what destroys us and what sustains us. Number 2, the open window, a culture with nothing to hide. Walk through a Dutch neighborhood at dusk, and you'll notice something curious. The lights are warm, the tables are set, and behind those wide windows, there are no curtains. You can see everything. A family sharing dinner, a child reading, a man tuning his guitar beside a vase of tulips. It feels like walking through a gallery of private lives, yet no one seems to mind. In most parts of the world, people hide their homes from strangers. But here in the Netherlands, transparency is an old tradition. It began with the Calvinist belief that those who live rightly have nothing to conceal. Centuries later, that belief became something more, a quiet, social contract. If you live with integrity, you don't need to draw the curtains. At first, I found it unsettling. I felt like an intruder walking through streets made of glass. But then I realized the real magic of these windows isn't that you can look in, it's that you don't. People pass by, eyes soft, heads slightly turned away, not because they're disinterested, but because they understand the difference between seeing and intruding. That's the paradox of Dutch privacy. They protect it not by closing off, but by trusting others to respect it. And maybe that's why the country feels so safe. When trust becomes culture, not law, you don't need walls, only windows. Sometimes I stop by one of those streets, my reflection blending with the glow of someone's living room. The sight feels strangely intimate, a reminder that life, when lived honestly, doesn't need to hide. Perhaps this is why so many Dutch cities feel open, uncluttered, and human. There's space, not just in the architecture, but in the spirit of the people. I once asked an old woman in Utrecht why she never used curtains. She smiled and said, "If someone looks in, let them. Maybe they'll see something kind." That sentence stayed with me, because in a world where so many build walls of fear, this country quietly builds windows of trust. And when I think about it, the open window is more than a piece of glass. It's a philosophy. It says, we choose transparency over suspicion. We choose honesty over pretense. The Dutch don't boast about freedom. They practice it gently, in the way they live, in the way they let light fall into their homes, and in the way they let strangers walk by without fear. Sometimes, when the wind brushes through the narrow streets and the evening settles into stillness, I imagine that every window in this country breathes the same word: trust. And maybe that's the secret the rest of us have forgotten. That freedom doesn't come from hiding who we are, but from daring to live where everyone can see. Number 3, of borders and bridges, when two countries share the same house. There's a small town in Europe where the border between two nations runs through living rooms, cafes, and even front doors. One half belongs to Belgium, the other to the Netherlands. The locals call it Barl. I stood there one gray morning, watching a man sip coffee at a table split by a thin white line painted on the floor. His left foot was in Belgium, his right in the Netherlands. He smiled when I asked which country he preferred. "It depends where the sunlight falls," he said. "In the morning, I'm Dutch. In the evening, I'm Belgian." There was no passport control, no fences, no guards, just chalk marks across cobblestone streets and doorsteps, a simple X on the ground, That's all that separates two systems of law, two governments, two flags. And yet, in Barl, people don't live divided. They live together. One bar closes early on the Dutch side, but if you step 3 meters left, the Belgian side stays open late. The same building, two rules, and somehow no conflict. It's a living paradox, a reminder that boundaries are human inventions, not natural laws. The earth doesn't draw lines. We do. And in Barl, those lines have turned into threads that weave two communities together rather than tear them apart. Walking those streets felt surreal, like moving through a quiet metaphor. Here was proof that coexistence isn't a theory written in treaties. It's a daily choice, made by ordinary people who refuse to make borders bigger than kindness. I saw children playing hopscotch across the frontier, their laughter crossing nations like it didn't notice. I saw neighbors sharing beer, paying in two currencies but speaking one language of understanding. And I thought, if the world could learn from this town, maybe we'd all breathe a little easier. Because here, nationality isn't a wall, it's an address. And identity isn't a uniform. It's a rhythm you share with whoever stands beside you. Barley taught me something that morning. When people trust each other, even the most tangled borders become invisible. In a world obsessed with separation, this tiny town stands as a whisper of sanity. It tells us that peace doesn't need grand declarations or perfect systems. It begins quietly, on a street where two flags meet, and nobody cares which one is flying higher. As I left, the sun broke through a curtain of fog, lighting up the chalk border until it looked like a thin silver thread. I paused for a moment, thinking how fragile that line was, and how beautiful. Maybe the borders that matter most aren't the ones we draw on maps, but the ones we learn to cross inside ourselves. Number 4. The village without roads, a world that moves on water. There's a place in the Netherlands where the sound of engines disappears. No honking, no traffic lights, no asphalt veins cutting through the earth. Only the slow ripple of water and the gentle creak of wooden bridges. Its name is Giethoorn, a village without roads. From above, it looks like a watercolor painting. Thatched roof cottages nestled between slender canals, each home linked not by streets, but by small arched bridges. Locals move around in whisper boats, their electric motors gliding silently under willow trees. Tourists row softly, their oars stirring reflections instead of dust. The first time I arrived there, I thought I'd stepped out of time. There were no cars, no advertisements, no rush, only calm. Even the air seemed to breathe slower. A mailman paddled past me, sorting letters in a small wooden boat. He waved, smiling, as if to remind me that peace is not the absence of motion, but the presence of balance. Giethoorn isn't a fantasy village. It's a working community, a living example of what happens when humans design their world to fit nature, instead of forcing nature to fit them. The canals were first dug centuries ago by farmers who needed to move peat, dark, rich soil that once fueled their fires. What began as labor became lifestyle. Over generations, the water became their path, their boundary, and their heartbeat. When winter comes, the canals freeze into glass. The boats vanish, replaced by skaters gliding through the village under twinkling lights. Laughter echoes through the cold, the same way it has for hundreds of years. And when the thaw returns, the ice melts quietly back into the rhythm of water. Nothing is lost, nothing wasted. Standing there, I realized something that I hadn't felt in many years. Silence doesn't have to be empty. It can be full. Giethoorn is full of it, the kind of silence that carries memory, discipline, and respect. In the world outside, we build highways to reach each other faster. Here, they slow down and somehow arrive closer. Maybe that's the paradox of modern life. The more we hurry to connect, the farther apart we drift. In Giethorn, they never hurried. They let the water decide the pace. Maybe that's why time forgot to touch them. When I left the village, I looked back one last time, at the reflections trembling on the surface of the canal, at the old wooden bridge bending under the evening light. It struck me that this village wasn't quiet because nothing happened there. It was quiet because everything that mattered already had. Perhaps Giethorn isn't just a place. It's a reminder of what we lose when noise becomes our native language, and what we might find again if we learn to move softly upon the water. Number 5. The tallest women, the strongest spirit, the human face of the Netherlands. It's impossible to walk through Amsterdam or Utrecht without noticing it. The Dutch people are tall, especially the women. At first you think it's just genetics, but after a while you start to understand. Their height isn't only physical, it's a kind of presence, the quiet confidence of people who don't shrink to fit the world. You see them everywhere, riding bicycles in the rain, hair damp, faces calm, carrying briefcases, groceries, or sometimes just a bouquet of tulips tucked under one arm. They move with the kind of grace that doesn't need permission. Their strength isn't loud. It's the kind that comes from balance, between independence and softness, self-respect and empathy. One evening, I sat in a cafe beside a canal, watching a young woman lock her bike. She stood tall, her long coat catching the wind, her reflection rippling in the dark water. There was something about her, an ease, a quiet assurance, that felt like the essence of the Netherlands itself. Later, I learned something interesting. In Dutch culture, equality isn't a performance, it's a norm. Women here don't need to prove they're strong. They just live that way. They don't wait to be chosen, they choose. There's even an old tradition. On February 29th, women can propose marriage. If the man refuses, he must buy her a dress, a small custom, but one that says a lot about how this society views power and dignity. In the Netherlands, women are not just taller by centimeters, they stand taller in spirit. They speak their minds, walk alone at night, and live without fear in a world that often teaches women to shrink. I once asked a Dutch professor what he thought made his country different. He smiled and said, "Maybe because we trust each other to be strong." That trust changes everything. It allows people to live as equals, to disagree without disrespect, to love without ownership. And that, perhaps, is what real progress looks like. Not headlines or slogans, but the everyday peace that grows when men and women meet eye to eye. There's a kind of beauty in that, the kind that doesn't fade or need validation. It's the beauty of people who stand firm without stepping on anyone else. When I think of the Netherlands now, I don't just see windmills or canals. I see those women walking through rain-soaked streets, unbothered by weather or opinion, as if the world itself has learned to give them space. They remind me that strength doesn't need to shout. Sometimes, it just needs to stand. And in that stillness, you realize, maybe true equality isn't about being the same. Maybe it's about being free to be exactly who you are. Number 6. Bridges for beasts, when even animals have roads of their own. I remember driving through a highway north of Amsterdam one misty morning. The road was clean, quiet, and precise. Every sign aligned, every tree trimmed. Then suddenly, I noticed something unusual above, a stretch of forest suspended in the air. A bridge, but not for cars. It was covered in grass, dotted with shrubs, and fenced just enough to keep travelers safe. That was my first encounter with what the Dutch call ecoducts, bridges built for animals. Yes, you heard that right. In this country, even deer, foxes, and hedgehogs have their own overpasses. Some of these crossings are longer than football fields, wide enough for an entire forest to walk across. 70 of them, spread through the Netherlands, quietly serve as lifelines between fragmented habitats. It's a strange thing. We often measure civilization by what we build for ourselves. But here, they build for everything that breathes. While other nations expand highways to move faster, the Dutch carve gentle paths through steel and concrete so that the smallest creatures can continue their slow, patient migrations. I stood below one of those bridges, listening to the faint rustle of wind through grass above my head. Somewhere up there, perhaps a family of deer was crossing from one forest to another, unseen, unharmed, uninterrupted. It felt humbling. The Dutch don't talk much about saving the world. They just design it differently. Their engineering genius isn't only about floodgates or canals. It's about empathy made structural. When you build a bridge for a fox, you're not solving a problem. You're admitting that it's not your land alone. That thought stayed with me long after I left. Because in a world where human ambition often erases the quiet lives around us, these bridges stand as gentle apologies, small green gestures saying, "We remember you." Some might call it excess, but maybe, in the long run, kindness is the most intelligent design there is. A local ecologist once told me, "Here, we build as if we're guests, not owners." That sentence could define the entire nation. The Netherlands has learned that the cost of dominance is silence, the kind where birds stop singing, forests stop breathing, and rivers forget their way home. So they build, not to dominate, but to restore the dialogue. A conversation between man and earth that in most places has long been broken. Standing there, I thought of all the places I'd been. Deserts where the sand had swallowed trees, cities where light drowned out the stars, oceans choked with plastic. And here, in this small, flat land below sea level, someone had thought of a hedgehog trying to cross the road. That's when it struck me. Progress isn't measured in skyscrapers or GDP. It's measured in compassion. Maybe the real test of a civilization isn't how far we can travel, but how gently we let others pass. Number 7. Floating homes. When people decide to live with water, not against it. In most countries, water is something to be feared. Floods destroy, storms threaten, rivers overflow, and we build walls to keep them out. But here, in the Netherlands, people do something remarkable. They float. Amsterdam, the city of 1,000 canals, isn't just famous for its beauty. It's a living experiment in coexisting with water. Along its quiet waterways, thousands of houseboats sway gently with the current. Each one a full home, complete with gardens, mailboxes, Wi-Fi, and cats basking on the deck. They call them woonboten, homes that move with the tide. The first were built after the Second World War, when land was scarce and housing short. But what began as necessity became philosophy. Instead of fighting the water, the Dutch learned to follow its rhythm. I remember staying on one of those boats one foggy night. The air was cold, but the water beneath seemed alive, breathing softly against the hull. The lamps from nearby bridges cast reflections that rippled like dreams. It was a home that rocked you, not to test your balance, but to remind you how delicate balance really is. Every detail spoke of adaptation. Solar panels on the roof, waste systems connected to the city grid, ropes that rose and fell with the tide. And above all, a quiet understanding that the ground beneath you doesn't need to be solid to be safe. That idea stayed with me, because maybe that's what the Dutch have always understood, that permanence is an illusion. The sea shifts, the land sinks, the world changes. So instead of clinging to the ground, they learn to move with it. It's not just architecture, it's a mindset, resilience shaped into lifestyle. A Dutch architect once told me, "We don't conquer nature, we collaborate with her." And when I looked out across those canals, at the rows of boats glowing softly under a misty moon, I understood what he meant. The water wasn't an enemy. It was a mirror. It reflected a people who had learned to live without fear of sinking. In the morning, I opened the small window above my bunk. A man was rowing past, carrying bread from the bakery. He smiled and said, "The water keeps us honest." I asked what he meant. He replied, "It reminds us every day that control is borrowed." That sentence has never left me. In a century where so much of humanity tries to defy nature, to build higher, stronger, harder, the Netherlands whispers a different kind of wisdom. If you can't stop the tide, learn its rhythm. If you can't stand forever, learn to float. Perhaps that's the lesson we all need, not just as nations, but as people. Because sometimes, to survive, you don't need to resist life's currents. You just need to trust that they can carry you somewhere new. Number 8. The Orange Days, Joy, Freedom, and the Art of Being Unashamedly Human. Every country has its rhythm. The Netherlands, for all its calm, restraint, and order, surprises you when the rhythm changes. Once a year, it explodes. April 27th, King's Day. On that morning, the entire nation wakes up and dresses in orange. Not just the flags or the markets, but people, old men, toddlers, even dogs wearing tiny orange scarves. The color floods every street, every canal, every sky. It's loud, messy, cheerful, and yet deeply tender. I remember standing on a bridge in Amsterdam, watching thousands of people drift past on boats, laughing, singing, clinking glasses. Strangers danced together. Musicians played on rooftops. The water shimmered with confetti and sunlight. For a country known for modesty, it was like watching the sea finally overflow, not with water but with joy. They call it Koningsdag, but it's less about monarchy and more about belonging. There's no hierarchy that day, no pretense, just people, orange, honest, alive. And that's the paradox of the Dutch. They live with restraint, but they celebrate with abandon. They're private in their homes, but open in their hearts. They're organized, yet unafraid to let chaos in, at least once a year, to remind themselves that order without joy is just another kind of floodgate. Later, I visited the coast, where people celebrated the Nieuwjaarsduik, the New Year's dive. Thousands running into the freezing sea together, laughing through chattering teeth. It's madness. But in that madness, there's clarity. When the cold bites, everyone becomes equal. Stripped of ego, washed clean by the same water they've spent centuries holding back. I've always believed that how a nation celebrates says more than how it works. And here, celebration feels like gratitude, not escape. The Dutch don't pretend life is perfect. They just choose to honor its imperfections. They dance not to forget hardship, but to remember how far they've come. In a world where happiness often feels commercialized, bought, staged, or filtered, King's Day is refreshingly human. There's no stage, no performance, no audience. Just a collective reminder that being alive, together, is reason enough to smile. That night, when the music faded and the canals grew quiet again, I saw an old man sitting alone by the water. He wore an orange hat, now slightly faded, a bottle of beer beside him. He was humming softly, maybe a song from long ago. And I thought, maybe joy doesn't always come in explosions. Maybe it lingers in small, stubborn ways, like the color orange that refuses to fade, even in the dark. The Dutch understand something the world often forgets, that freedom isn't the absence of rules. It's the ability to celebrate life, even within them. And when the last echoes of laughter disappeared across the canal that night, I realized, sometimes the truest form of strength isn't holding the line, it's knowing when to let go. When the journey was over, I stood on a dike near Rotterdam, looking out at the North Sea. The sky stretched endlessly gray. The wind carried the scent of salt and soil, and the land below me, flat, deliberate, alive, seemed to hum with quiet endurance. It was here, in this stillness, that I finally understood what the Netherlands had been trying to say all along. This country isn't remarkable because of its wealth, its order, or its beauty. It's remarkable because of its humility, because beneath the polished cities and careful canals lies a collective truth, that survival isn't about conquering nature or each other, it's about learning to live with. Everywhere I'd been in this country told the same story. The windmills turning patiently, the open windows that trusted strangers, the border town where two nations share a single street, the bridges built for foxes, the houses that float, the people who stand tall, yet never look down on anyone. Each of them, in their own quiet way, whispered the same lesson: balance. It's the hardest thing for humans to master. We build towers to feel powerful, but forget the ground beneath us. We chase progress, but lose our peace. The Dutch seem to understand something we keep missing, that wisdom isn't found in excess, but in restraint. They live with water at their feet and wind at their backs, never taking safety for granted. They build trust into their architecture, empathy into their systems, and dignity into their daily lives. And somehow, that makes their small nation vast. I've spent years crossing this world, from deserts where people prayed for rain, to islands slowly sinking under rising tides. I've watched wealth bloom in one corner and rot in another. But in this small country below the sea, I found something I hadn't seen in a long time. A people who learned that to endure is not to dominate, but to cooperate with each other, with time, with the earth itself. Maybe that's what makes the Netherlands so quietly powerful. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply exists, beautifully, intelligently, humbly. As the waves rolled in, I thought of everything I'd seen here: the children skating over frozen canals, the orange glow of King's Day fading into laughter, the mirrored reflections of houses standing side by side with their watery twins. And I felt something shift, softly, almost imperceptibly, inside me. Maybe the world hasn't changed. Maybe only the way I see it has. I turned to leave, the wind tugging gently at my coat. Behind me, the sea stretched out like an unfinished sentence, waiting for someone else to listen. And before I walked away, I whispered the same thing I whisper at the end of every journey. Thank you for letting me witness you. If this story spoke to you tonight, if for a moment you saw a reflection of yourself in this quiet country of balance and light, share it. Tell someone that there's still beauty in the ordinary, still wisdom in the humble, still peace in the places that choose gentleness over noise. And when the next story appears on your screen, stay. Travel with me again through the unseen corners of this world, and together, we'll keep searching for meaning in the silence. You're watching Fascinating Discoveries, and I'm the Old Observer. Until next time, good night.